Heart disease and cancer are neck to neck in the world today for number one killers. And I have many books in my library at home I've got hundreds of books, but I've got quite a few from doctors, professors, scientists, naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists who've called it cancer. So I'm intrigued. I want to know how they did it. And when you have a look at it, there are many different tangents, and you've probably seen this. There are many different tangents. But what I wanted to sift through was the three common denominators. Because there are many, many different causes of cancer, but I wanted to know the three common denominators. Because if you know the cause, then you know the cure. Now, I think that most people are very much aware that if someone is a smoker for 40 years, there's a very high risk they're going to get lung cancer. So there's damage done to the cells. But what I wanted to know was, there are some obviouses like that, but what I wanted to know is, what were the common denominators? So I'm going to write for you the common denominators. Because when you know the common denominators, when you know the cause, then you actually know where it comes from. So let's have a look at what cancer loves. And if we want to know what cancer loves, then we want to make sure it doesn't get it. Is that right? Cancer loves glucose. And the fact is that cancer cells, no matter what type of cancer it is, cancer consumes 15 times the glucose of any other cell. So we're going to go into the cell. We've gone into the cell a couple of times. Going to the CBD, the human body, the central business district. We look at glucose going in. And glucose, when it gets into the cell, it goes through a 20-step pathway. And this 20-step pathway delivers for us 2 units of energy. The end result of the 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. And pyruvate, as the chemical form of glucose, it gets fed into the next section. This 8-step pathway is called the powerhouse of the cell. And the reason it's called the powerhouse of the cell, because it delivers a very impressive 36 units of energy. This pathway uses oxygen, this pathway uses no oxygen. So you could call that pathway the anaerobic pathway and this pathway the aerobic pathway. But to know how the cancer cell works, we need to know how the cell works. So this pathway is very fast. It's a very fast pathway. This pathway is slow. So this pathway here is consuming 15 times the glucose compared to another cell. Now, as that cycle spins, it's only going to use so much energy. It's consuming a lot of glucose, doesn't need any oxygen, but it's only delivering 2 units of energy. Cancer also loves an environment where there's no oxygen. What part of the pathway has no oxygen? Up here. So basically, this is where the cancer cell runs. Cancer cannot live in the presence of oxygen. Cancer also loves an acid environment. And so what we want to do, we want to create an environment where there's not a lot of glucose delivery. We want to create an environment where there's a lot of oxygen, and we want to alkalize it. And so when someone comes to us wanting to conquer cancer, the first thing we do is we starve. We starve the cancer cells. So how do we starve the cancer cell? by putting the person on a diet that is very, very low sweet. And so what we suggest, and you'll find it in my book, in the Self-Heal by Design, it's called the Cancer Conquering Diet. And so for 6 weeks, we advise no fruit. One lady said that fruit's good. I said fruit's very good. But what we want to do, we want to make it very, very difficult for cancer to survive in the body. Is that right? Because the body and the body alone has the ability to heal. It just needs the right conditions. So one of the conditions to stimulate healing is to starve. So no fruit and no sweet. You could call it the no fruit diet. So what does the person eat? Lots of vegetables. And there are some fruits. You see, what's the classification of the fruit? The classification of the fruit is that it has a seed in it. So there are some what we call fruits, but they're savoury fruits because they're very low sweet. So there's your tomato, cucumber, zucchini, we call it squash, we call it pumpkin. It's in my new book, we've taken the pumpkin out and put squash in. Avocado, lemon. So they are all very low sweets. So they are, of course, acceptable. And there are so many vegetables, no other vegetables. And legumes. As long as they are rinsed very well, cooked very well. Nuts and seeds. There are so many different legumes, and there are so many different nuts and seeds, and there are so many different vegetables that allows for quite a variety. So one lady said to me, well, I make Monday lentil day, Tuesday tofu day, Wednesday chickpea, or you call it garbanzos day, Thursday's kidney bean day, Friday's black turtle bean day, and on Saturday it might be cannelloni bean day. So you can see there's a lot of variety there. So there's much that you can do. What about potatoes? Some say no potatoes because they're high carb, but I've got some good news. In his book, The Garden of Eden Diet and Breast Cancer, Hope at Last, 2 different books by Professor Constantini, his former head of the World Health Organization, WHO, the Department of Mycology. We touched on that the other day, the study of fungus. He shows the link between fungus and cancer, and he's got some good news. My husband thought it was wonderful news. Just under the skin of the potato, there's strong antifungal properties. So yes, potatoes are allowed.
Sweet and white?
Sweet and white, yeah.
What was the name of the author?
Constantine. He's a German. He quotes 30,000 research papers in some of his books showing the link between fungus, disease, and fungus and cancer. So start the fungus by the diet and start the fungus, make sure there is no exposure to mould. We had one lady come and she had advanced breast cancer. She was only 38 and she had 3 little children. And when I was explaining the situation of the link between cancer and fungus, and on the first day we looked at that, we touched on that, we looked at the fungal link with disease, she said, oh no. I said, what is it? She said, my bedroom is always mouldy. She said, we've got my bedroom, it's on the side of the house where there's no sun. There are big trees outside the house, so any little bit of sun that might come early morning is shaded. And she said, and next to my bedroom is our ensuite, and between the ensuite and the bedroom in one section, there's my wardrobe, and my shoes are always going green with moles. She said, my little bells. And because she was a lady in the house, she was a cleaner. But the husband, he wasn't really affected because he was at work all day. But she was the cleaner, and whenever you've got mould on something and you wipe it, you disrupt it, it's going into your skin, you're breathing it. There is a time for a mask. Something of many, but this is the time. And gloves and covering body. Actually, if you have mould anywhere in your house, don't use bleach, because bleach will kill the mould and feed the fungus.
Oh,
And fungus is one stage before mould, so it'll feed your next crop of mould. So what can you do? And by the way, when you mix bleach and mould together, you come up with one of the most toxic mixes. So what you can do is you can get a spray bottle and fill it full of white vinegar. Spray the area and walk straight out. Come back in 10 minutes later, it'll all be dead, then you can wipe it up. But if you spray it white, the dust will come in and go all over you. And then ring up the plumber or the builder and find out why it's there, because it should not be there. So really, this lady, if we'd known, or if she'd known early, it's cutting down some trees, getting some skylights in, getting some fans in, fans in the bathroom. You know, it's a good idea after you've had a shower, keep that fan on another half hour even to make sure that it's dried out. Her children didn't really have a problem because where their bedrooms were was further along the house, which was getting some sun, and the children didn't have the bathroom right next to their bedrooms. It was very, very sad. She rang up her husband, she said, I can't go home. I can't go back to the house. Her husband wasn't aware there was a problem because she kept the house nice and clean. She was cleaning it all the time, but because she was the cleaner, she was being constantly contaminated with this mold. A very sad story because unfortunately she didn't make it. She didn't last very much longer. Very sad. So you can look at why. And in some cases it's a huge contributing factor, in some cases it's not a huge contributing factor. And as I showed you the other day, when we looked at the fungus, the mushrooming epidemic I think we called it, you can have yeast in your body and not have cancer. But if it's given the right conditions, it certainly can develop into that. So please, no exposure to mould, no mould, and also no chemicals. Because if you remember from our first day, the yeast, funguses, bacteria, they're all opportunist organisms. They're actually the vacuum cleaners of the planet. I was just talking to a lady outside and she said, very hard to find cotton undies. And we started to have a look, you know, in Australia there's one shop where you can get a lot of linen and cotton and it's Target. But I think your Target's different, it's not quite the same thing, is it? And our Target just sells clothes and linen, whereas here, your Target is almost like a supermarket, isn't it?
Sells everything.
Yeah, it has a bit of everything. Number 2. By the way, not only fruit and not only sweet, but also yeasts. So then the question is, well, what bread do you eat? There's an excellent bread, and I'll give you the site for it. It's called Simple Needs. He's a friend of mine, and it's an amazing bread. It's the best sourdough, gluten-free bread I have ever tasted. Very, very nice. And it's a combination of wild yeast and lactobacillus. That's what the sourdough bread is. So that what happens is the yeast, the wild yeast, causes it to rise, but the sourdough is a combination of not just yeast, but also bacteria. So the lactobacillus acidophilus, it consumes the waste from the wild yeast. So when you're eating sourdough bread, you're not getting any yeast. But if you eat straight yeast bread, you are getting yeast. Also nutritional yeast, we don't use it at all.
Oh.
So you can't kill yeast. You can't kill it. So you want to make sure there's no exposure to yeast at all, because we want to starve cancer. Number 2, kill. And we did look at the fact that there are herbs that will kill fungus, kill cancer, and they won't kill you. That's the good news. Remember, drugs are like robots. Whether you need it or not, they just do it. And so you'll find in my book, there's a whole list. And remember, it's usually 1 or 2 weeks. So what you're going to do is you alternate these herbs. Because as I showed you, the microbes get used to things. They want to constantly change them. Olive leaf extract is another good one. That's a strong one. And also grapefruit seed extract. And the other one we talked about was Puriaco.
Is it grapefruit seed or grape seed extract?
What's the F?
Grapefruit.
Not grape seed. Grapefruit seed extract. Very strong antifungal.
Did you cover brown rice?
Brown rice is fine, but it must be cooked every day.
Uh-huh.
In 1921, Japan passed the Rice Act. And that Rice Act put stringent rules on the storing of cooked rice. Because there was an epidemic of cardiac beriberi in Asia, and they traced it to the mold on cooked rice. And as I showed you the other day, there are hundreds of different molds and different mold wastes, and each mold waste has a different effect on a different body part. And the mold that was grown on the rice, the mold waste from it, directly affected the heart. And so what they did was they made stringent rules. That's the 1921 Rice Act. That you could only eat rice cooked that day. So if you want to make fried rice, cook it in the morning and make fried rice at lunch. If you want to make sushi, cook it in the morning, make it at lunch. If you cook too much, freeze it. So that's the only brain like that. We had a pathologist, we had a few pathologists do our program, and they said always the peanuts and cooked rice would test positive for mold. And I've also had people working fast food places work for us, and they said it's true. Every time the health department come in, they go straight to the rice. So in those bakeries where they're keeping the food hot, they always go straight to the rice because it commonly grows mold. And when you see the mold, it's already very well established, because when you see it, it's to its reproductive stage. So, cook little bits of rice. Other grains, not so. Millets, you can cook to the next day. That's in quinoa, but not rice. So rice must be cooked really the day that you eat it. And when you're starving the fungus, it's not that carbs are out of the picture, very low carb. Keep the carbs very, very low. Number 3, alkalize. Cancer loves an acid environment, so we're going to make it an alkaline environment. So we're going to alkalize the body. So how do we do that? One of the best ways to do that is green drinks. Now at Misty Mountain, we're way out in the bush, so we've got a lot of greens there. We've got a lot of wild greens, plantain greens. We've got stingy nettle or comfrey. We've got pumpkin tips, and we gather wild greens. And we always put a lot of mint in it, then it'll taste a bit better. So the recipe's in my book, but it's usually 4 cups of freshly picked greens, 4 cups of water, blend it very well, then strain it. And then we pour it into little bottles, so they're It's like drinking grass. But the greens are very, very high in alkaline minerals. So the alkaline minerals are sodium, potassium, calcium and magnesium, and iron. So that the greens are incredibly high in these the alkaline minerals. So we usually get our guests who are there to help combat cancer on the juicing days. Now remember we gave 5 juices a day to our guests. Because we want to get the street right down, we take 2 juices out. We only give them 3 juices. But the other 2 juices we give a green drink. So we give a green drink in the morning, we give a green drink at 10, we give a green drink at 2, and we give a green drink, say, at 5 in the afternoon. So they haven't come into of that green drink. Now for our guests that are going home and don't have the availability of greens that we have, you can buy Rhubarb or chlorophyll or super greens. There's lots of green powders and green drinks you can buy.
Wheatgrass?
Wheatgrass, yeah. So that's one way to alkalize.
Have you found wheatgrass powder to be as effective as just getting is it okay?
Well, nothing's as good as the fresh,
Okay.
but it's the second best.
Okay.
So also alkalize, and at our retreat, we have a hyperbaric chamber. So what a hyperbaric chamber does is it increases the oxygen going into the body, and oxygen alkalizes. So what can you do here in the US? There is a retreat in Loveland, Colorado called Eden Valley. And they have a cancer program, and on that cancer program, I know they have 2 big hyperbaric chambers. So part of the treatment is the hyperbaric chamber. What is a hyperbaric chamber?
What's the name?
Eden Valley. So you might recall that when divers come up too quickly, they get the bends. You see, the air that we breathe is 79% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, and a very small amount of carbon dioxide. So what happens when the divers come up too quick? They can't release the nitrogen quick enough, and it goes into little balls like in their joints, and that's very, very painful. So they developed a hyperbaric chamber because Henry's law states that under pressure, more gas goes into liquid. And that's how the hyperbaric chamber works. And the gas, of course, is oxygen, and the liquid is blood, and the blood is the carrier of the oxygen. So when they put the divers into the hyperbaric chamber, it quickly disperses the pain very quickly because upping the oxygen allows the nitrogen to be released. But what they have found is that the hyperbaric chamber is very effective at wound healing, especially in diabetics because their circulation isn't very good. When the diabetics go to the hyperbaric chamber because it ups the oxygen, because how much more energy is each cell giving when it's got adequate oxygen? So if you've got 75 trillion of these cells, 25 trillion red blood cells, and the blood is the carrier of the oxygen, carries it here. If every single one of our 75 trillion cells has enough oxygen going in to get down to that pathway, how are you going to feel? If it's the brain's going to be sparky. Every single cell in the body needs oxygen to be able to give that sort of energy. And so that's why wound healing increases, because they're increasing the oxygen in every cell. But also they're finding that it is very helpful for people who have cancer, because cancer cannot live in the presence of oxygen. But when you increase the oxygen content, and some people say, well, I can't afford to go to Eden Valley, and I can't go to Eden Valley. How can I increase the oxygen in my body? You can increase the oxygen in your body by nose breathing. Because when you nose breathe, you get more oxygen. Now, when you're exercising, your body will tell you, I need more air, open the mouth. And you might get more air coming in, but where do we need the air? Where do we need the oxygen? In the cell. And that cell has 4 receptor sites for oxygen, and the only way that it will pick up the oxygen if each receptor site has carbon dioxide. What nose breathing does, it balances the carbon dioxide level. So if you're breathing out through your mouth, you're losing too much carbon dioxide. And if there are only 2 molecules of carbon dioxide, only 2 molecules of oxygen can go in. Now I have drawn that as if there's 1 energy cycle per cell, but it is not. There can be hundreds of energy cycles per cell. This is big.
Where does copper fit into cell function?
All the minerals are important in cell function, so I never take a supplement. I like to take it in the way it's found in nature. So when you're having a healthy salt with that mineral balance, and when you're taking the green drinks, you're getting the minerals all in their perfect balance. Any time there's an imbalance, you have to look at why. What's causing the imbalance? Medication can cause it, chemicals can cause it. Mold can cause it. Any environmental poisons going into the body can cause an imbalance.
So can we deal with, I don't, like, a lot of people will say you can't get enough of the minerals anymore because the soil itself is depleted, even if it's organic, it's depleted. So how do we compensate for that?
You know, even if it's organic, it's not depleted.
Really?
Yeah. Because that's what the organic gardener does. He feeds his soil. And because he feeds his soil, what's he feeding his soil with? Compost. It has all those microbes in it. And it's the microbes that break down the minerals in the soil and make them available for the plants. Yes?
Is it possible for someone to come, if they started doing chemo and radiation, to come back if they started this, to get their body back after?
It's a lot more difficult when people have been poisoned with chemo and radiation, it is true. But the body is an amazing piece of machinery. Once it starts to be given the right conditions, how it can respond, that's the good news. Yeah?
So I live in a very humid environment, and one thing as a builder that we find works really well is dehumidifiers for fighting mold.
Dehumidifier is fantastic especially in moist environments. We had a lady when I was at Eden Valley about 2 months ago. She'd moved out of her house so that her house could be renovated, and every day she's getting more pictures. As they pulled out the kitchen, black mold. As they pulled up the tiles, black mold. And what they discovered is that what do you call it under the house? Like an airway that's under the house, has all been blocked up.
Crawl space.
So ground space. It had all been blocked up. And I remember her situation was interesting. She was pretty healthy, ate very, very well, lived well, but she had this terrible hay fever. And she would sneeze and sneeze and sneeze, and I said, now we know why. Because unbeknownst to her, she was breathing that wrongly. So the body was throwing it off.
I'm just curious. I've lived all my life in California until 3 years ago. Never had allergies. And I guess Austin's very famous for, if you move to Austin, people all of a sudden develop allergies. I all of a sudden have an allergy. How do I investigate that and figure out how to reverse that?
So we're going to have a look at that in detail tomorrow when we look at respiratory. When we look at respiratory, I'll show you in detail what the main allergens are.
Okay.
So we're looking at alkalizing, so you can oxygenate your body by becoming nose breathers. I read an excellent book if you want to pursue this in more detail. It's very easy to remember, it's called Breath. That's my book. That's by James Nestor. You're going through the first 3 chapters where it talks about the nose developing over 60 billion years or something. But once you get down to the nitty-gritty, it's very interesting. He quotes many authors. I love a book that quotes many authors. You got it all in one book. And he quotes George Catlin. And George Catlin lived amongst the red American Indians for 6 years in the mid-1800s. And he said every tribe prized nose breeding. And they actually attributed their strength and their fitness to nose breathing. And children were not allowed to mouth breathe. And mothers, Indian mothers, they feed their babies to sleep, lay them down, and then they pinch their lips together and they hold their lips together and they wouldn't leave until they knew that baby was nose breathing. Nose purifies the air, nose humidifies the air, and nose warms the air. And nose balances the blood gases. And those blood gases are the ones that determine how much oxygen is coming into the cell. So what are the blood gases that the nose breathing balances? Yes, oxygen, yes, CO2, carbon dioxide, and nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the gas that's made in the sinuses when the air is going in and out of the nose. So if you breathe through your mouth, you're not making nitric oxide. And if you breathe out through your mouth, you're losing too much carbon dioxide. And when you breathe into your lungs, when we look at respiratory in more detail, for 4 molecules of oxygen to be picked up, there must be 4 molecules of carbon dioxide. Yes, of the cell wall, but also in the alveoli in the lungs. So there's a cat that George tells the story of a white trader and a red Indian who had a dispute, and they were going to have a fight. Anyway, thankfully the dispute was resolved without having to fight. And George Catlin went up to the Indian later and he said, "Weren't you worried? That white trader is twice the size." He said, "No, I would have won. He was a mouth breather." That's how much they prize nose breathing. And tomorrow we're going to look at, when we look at spiritual, we're going to look at also sinus, because it's part of respiratory. And that's one of the reasons many people mouth breathe is because the nose is blocked up. And the nose is blocked up usually because of allergens. But they're the gases that nose breathing balances. So when you have adequate amounts of carbon dioxide, you're actually going to get more oxygen. So nose breathing ensures more oxygen and long, slow, deep. Remember God's LSD? Long, slow, deep. There's your abdominal breathing. So abdominal breathing, and to abdominal breathing, you have to have strong abs, strong abdominal muscles. Have you done your push-ups today? Strong abdominal muscles, because when you have strong abdominal muscles, all of those muscles are connected to your spine, and they cause you to stand upright. When you're standing upright, you can use your abdominal muscles in the breathing process. If you're hunched, you cannot use your abdominal muscles in the breathing process. So we can actually get more oxygen just by changing the way that we breathe. And you'll get better at it. You can train yourself. And you can also tape up your mouth. And that'll encourage. So hyperbaric chamber, so this is encouraging more oxygen. Also, vegetables, they're your big alkalizers, vegetables. Yes, the most alkaline is the greens, but all the other vegetables. So you can do much to alkalize your body by just eating vegetables, which the person automatically will do when they start to eliminate fruit from the diet. Now there are some little specifics depending on the cancer. So what about breast cancer? Well, breast cancer always has a hormonal aspect. And the Australian Health Department have stated that estrogen is a known human carcinogen. So what's estrogen? I'm going to give you a very quick rundown of it here, because on Saturday morning we're going to look at it in detail. You could look at estrogen as a daughter, but mother is progesterone. Progesterone is the mother hormone. Whether you be male or whether you be female, mother hormone is progesterone, because from progesterone, estrogen is made. There's actually 3 daughters of estrogen. And from progesterone, testosterone is made. So looking at this, I'm going to assess breast cancer and also prostate cancer. But with ladies, it could be breast cancer, it could be uterine cancer, any cancer of the reproductive organs. Now, one of the problems with estrogen is that it's a cell proliferator. That means it causes massive cell growth. And so it needs a mother hormone to keep it under control. The problem arises when the estrogen gets too high. Mother's out of the picture, when it's not when the cat's away and the mice do play. The estrogens get out of control. And the Australian Health Department is saying that estrogen is a known human carcinogen. What does that mean? It causes cancer. The contraceptive pill is one of the most responsible for getting estrogen levels up. This cancer-causing agent up. I read an article a few years ago, I think it was when the pill was 1957, the pill was first introduced to women. 1960s called the sexual revolution, when people wanted to be able to have sex without falling pregnant. Anyway, this article in the Time magazine is about 6 pages and the whole lot. It hailed the pill as freedom for women. It's the killer of women. I thought, who wrote this article? Because what the pill does, it disrupts the hormones. And it does that to stop the woman falling pregnant, and it does. But in the process, estrogen is going higher and mother hormone is going lower. In fact, since the pill, that's when endometriosis, what's endometriosis? Wondering if the endometrium, that's the lining of the uterus, too much estrogen, too much endometrium. And because estrogen causes massive cell growth, they're the fibroids in the uterus, that's the uterine cancer, that's the lumps in the breast, that's the breast cancer. And so with breast cancer, it is first step to balance the hormones. If a woman's hormones are balanced, she actually can't get breast cancer. Very difficult to get breast cancer. So what we've got to do, as you can see by this simple equation, we're going to get the mother back. Because that mother hormone, she'll bring that estrogen back under control. And that is where the yam cream plays an important role. So the yam cream, and you can get, I think there are a few different types of yam cream. My daughter sells one on Misty Mountain, USA. But what the cream does is it gets the progesterone up, which brings that estrogen down, yes?
Have you seen somebody claim on TikTok that diasterogen does not convert into progesterone?
That's right,
So
that's right.
if the wild yam has the diasterogen putting out in our bodies and it doesn't convert into progesterone, then how is it beneficial?
That's a good question. They claim that, you see, I'll explain it in more detail on Saturday, but I'll go a little bit further because of the question. You see, the wild yam contains a plant chemical, and that plant chemical is diasterogen. And the claim is that the body cannot convert diasterogen to progesterone, and that is true. What they say is true. But when you apply the yam to your skin, the diasterogen is taken up, and that diasterogen stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make its own progesterone. Can you see the difference? So the people that sell progesterone cream, that's their claim. They're saying that the body can't convert diasterogen into progesterone. That's right, it can't. That's not how it works, but what it does is it stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make its own progesterone. So it's actually superior. Because the boosting of progesterone balances the hormones. And if a person takes progesterone cream, and you can get progesterone cream, if you keep putting progesterone into your body thinks, well, this is good, we don't have to make this anymore. Can you see that? Now, if someone has breast cancer, they've just found out, they've got bright flushes all day, do you know, I think that progesterone cream can give them an initial kickstart. But then they need to go to the yam cream, because what we want to do is stimulate the body to make its own. Yes?
So, if the estrogen, and I'm at 65, I've never taken anything to help me along, I just got a good diet, I think. But, so when women take whatever they're taking for estrogen, I think that's what they take when they're going through menopause. Does it affect the men that they're with?
No.
I just was curious.
You see, some men don't want to touch their wives when they put the cream on them. But guess what? Mother hormone is also a precursor for testosterone. And what happens in testicular cancer, prostate cancer, testosterone goes too high. And when testosterone is too high, it can convert into a form of testosterone that causes inflammation of the prostate gland. So this yam cream is important for women with breast cancer, uterine cancer, any type of reproductive organ cancer. And for men with prostate cancer, they also need that cream. Because remember, you boost the mother, and that's what the diostin does. It stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make its own progesterone. When you boost mother, mother will bring testosterone down, mother will bring estrogen down.
So this is good for all ages.
It's good for all ages, yeah. Yeah. Yeah?
So you go to send the cream? You say your daughter, she sent the cream?
My daughter Emma, she got a website called Misty Mountain USA. That's easy to remember. Misty Mountain USA. You know, USA. They sell a yam cream, yes?
So the move in men for these low T centers and stuff like that that are boosting your testosterone, getting implants, doing a little thing, I guess they'll inject it in your butt or whatever. So wild yam would, again, make the progesterone, which would bring the testosterone into the proper balance, or only brings it down?
Into a balance. I mean, that's what I love about the yam cream, is it just works with your body. Your body knows what to do. And when you give it the right conditions, it'll start to work with that. Yeah.
So is the low T thing just another scam then?
100%.
Yeah. Someone said I'm
What age do you recommend starting about that?
What age do we recommend the yam cream? Yeah, well, if there's a problem, and there's a problem if a girl is developing breasts at 8 or 9 years of age, that's a problem.
It's my daughter's.
So, you know, and I usually say don't start them until they're menstruating. But a lady told me that her little boy had major problems. He was only 6, so she tried him on the cream and she's seeing improvement. So, yeah, you try it and see what happens. Yeah.
Best way to apply it?
Yeah, we're going to get into detail for that. But it's usually one fingertip up to the nail bed. I used to say the knuckle, first knuckle, but a lady thought this big knuckle was the first one, and she went through the whole joke 1 month. Usually it will last 3 months. Now the yam cream that my daughter's selling at the moment, it's got a squirt. So it just tells you, I think, 2 squirts. And you put it on tender parts of your body, inside of arms, inside of thighs, abdomen, chest. You alternate the sites of application twice a day, 3 weeks a month. So if a woman's not menstruating anymore, she just chooses 1 week where she does not apply it. So if a woman has got this estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency, which sadly is too common today, and she goes through menopause where the hormones drop, she's still likely imbalance. So no matter what the age, between 9 and 90, hardly anyone here's 90, it'll help, yes?
What would you say, is that kind of in relation to why so many women, even younger women, have low testosterone?
Yeah, well, you see, I don't know what I've got because I don't get tested and I won't get tested. Everything works. You know, sometimes the person will have a blood test and then they'll be all worried about the result in the blood test. I say, don't worry about it. Could be wrong. Even what my husband says, I don't believe that. And the other thing is, you can have a blood test and you haven't had enough sleep, you didn't drink enough water, you haven't been eating well, you're highly stressed, terrible blood test. A week later you have a blood test, you have a good sleep, you're well hydrated, you're eating well, it's a wonderful day, everything's going right, oh, really good results. So you see, they change. They change.
She said because a friend of mine, she had a test, she had a very low test, right? And she figured it out. And she was surprised that her testosterone was low. She said that didn't know.
Well, the other is that you have to also look at the history, you know, and that's what I look on Saturday morning. I look at all the things that throw in one's out. There's a whole lot of things that throw it out. And if the testosterone is low, all you have to do is boost progesterone, it'll bring it up. And that's what mother does. Mother balances it. If it's high, it'll bring it down. If it's low, it'll bring it up. So that's the, and we have found that this imbalance in hormones is one of the reasons for the low sex drive. And if you have a blood test, not all the hormones in your blood at any given time are all biologically active, so a blood test is not an accurate one. Yes?
On Saturday, we discussed these hormones and estrogen.
Yeah, we'll be looking at it in detail. I'll touch on it now because it's a very important part of cancer in the reproductive organs of men and women. And it's because of this disruption. It's caused by plastic, it's caused by chemicals, it's caused by growth stimulants in animals, and it's also caused by a contraceptive pill. So that is vital, that imbalance, if that is one of the cancers.
Do you think long-term, how long the pill affects the woman, if you've ever taken it?
Yeah, if a woman took it for 5 years, she will suffer for the rest of her life until she balances it, you know. And her male and female daughters can also be shown problems. So we've got to get the balance back. Now, another thing with breast cancer is poultices. So what's a poultice? We'll be looking at this, I think tomorrow, yeah? So poultices. So for the breast, there's a few poultices that can be used. One is charcoal and flaxseed. So what you do is you grind the flaxseed. That's the easiest way because it goes like soft gel. When you add water to it, because charcoal, when you mix charcoal and water, it's like mixing dirt with water. But if you put it with something like flaxseed, it goes like a nice soft gel. What you can do, and this is a bit more work, is just cooking the whole seeds. You cook the seeds for 10 minutes, it'll go like a soft jelly, and then you add the charcoal into that. And then it's wrapped in a cloth, and I'll show you how to do that tomorrow. You go last lecture tomorrow. And the other thing, you could put it with chia seed, but just something to hold that charcoal together. Charcoal absorbs and neutralises poisons, so it can be applied to the breast. And another one is castor oil. And I've had several women tell me that castor oil has helped because castor oil penetrates deeper than any other oil. Wherever it penetrates, it has the ability to break up tumours. So I've known people that have broken up bone spurs, bunions on their toes. So if it can break up a bunion, if it can break up a bone spur, tumours are even easier. So one lady told me that she said, she was a vet, she said 20 years ago I was diagnosed with breast cancer. She said, I was in the hospital, I didn't like what they were offering. We call it the slash poison burn. Slash is surgery, poison is chemotherapy, burn is radiotherapy. She said she wasn't interested in any of that, so a delivery boy came in and she said to the delivery boy, can I get a lift out with you? And she got out of that hospital. She said a friend lives near, had a little holiday house near the beach, and she rented that. And every morning she walked on the beach, barefoot on the beach, she's doing some grounding, diving in the sea, the mineral-rich sea. But she said that she thinks the important part of her conquering it was castor oil compresses. She said, I just wore it 24/7. 24/7 I just wore this castor oil compress on the breast. Now another very important part of breast cancer is looking at the fabric that's touching the breast. So the breast must move and it must breathe. So very important to get natural fibre from the grass. You see, the breast tissue is predominantly lymphatic tissue and it drains into the nose under the arm. But in under wild grass, there's this wire there that blocks the breast tissue being able to empty and clean into the nose under the arm. So very important, ladies, to seriously have a look at the bras that you are wearing. There's a book called Dress to Kill, and that book is about bras. You see, behind the breast tissue there is pectoral muscle, and the pectoral muscle can be strengthened or weakened. So I ladies, push ups every day to strengthen those pectoral muscles, and please be very fussy on what touches the breast. Another contributing factor to breast cancer is women who are in front of computers all day. So that's called the silent killer of our electromagnetic field. Their breasts are right in front of that computer. So be very cautious of that. They also found female singers with the microphone right there in front of their breasts. They've got to have a look at all the contributing factors. You can buy a bra, a sports bra with a pocket in it. The bra goes in. One breast surgeon said he was alarmed at the amount of 30-year-old women in their 30s with breast cancer, and it was in the breast where they put the phone in that side of the bra. It's called a silent killer because you can't see this one. So be very mindful of breast health. So the castor oil compress, it's more called the compress because through the compress you use it again and again and again, and I'm going to show you tomorrow afternoon how to make it.
What's the latest you can sleep without affecting the when?
What's the latest you can sleep? Well, the hours of power really are the early hours of the night. So ideally, we all should be asleep by 9 at the very latest 10.
Okay.
So we can get those hormones released in the early part of the night. My favourite is 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, at a stretch you could do 8 to 4. Not many people are interested in that one. Probably more people are interested in 10 to 6.
What's too much sleep?
What's too much sleep? Well, I guess you don't want to sleep the day away. And if someone's sleeping lots, but children need 12 hours. So it's important that children have a lot more. That's why children should go to bed a lot earlier. And it's important to put children to bed early because the parents need a little bit of time to themselves.
What age do you suggest switching?
Well, you probably, even teenagers studying, they're good to have 10. You know, and Dr. Matthew Walker in his book Why We Sleep, they asked him in Oxford, because he's an Englishman, to do a paper on good habits for study, and he suggested having 9 to 10 hours for the students. He suggested them going to bed very early. He suggested no alcohol, no caffeine, nothing that would disrupt sleep cycles, and to exercise in the day, and there should be no more than 2 exams a week. Well, they didn't ask him to write an article again. But actually what he said was the truth. That, in fact, it's incredible how students stay up all night to cram their minds, but if only they realised they miss out on their hours of power. Because one of the hormones that's released at the moment, summertime, it's released between 10 and 3 a.m. It's called epithalamin, and that increases learning capacity. So if you want to increase your learning capacity, go to bed early. So the idea is, if you want to get to bed by 9, you've got to start working on it at about 7 o'clock. And I found that the same with the children. At 5 to 7, you can't suddenly turn around and say, oh, bedtime, you'll get World War III. No, if you want them in by 7, you've got to start working on it at 5. So the sleep's important, the water's important, the addressing stress is important, life should be good. If there's any stresses in your life, you've got to tackle them. We'll look at that more on Saturday. Also, easing off the stimulants. They're the biggest sleep disruptors, is the stimulants. And breathing through the nose. Have you tried sleeping with your tape on your mouth yet? Maybe you're getting your brain used to it just a little bit, yeah?
What do you think of distilled water?
Distilled water, I don't think there's a need to have distilled water, but I think it is important to drink water that doesn't have fluoride in it. So the fluoride is one of the worst. The chlorine, that can actually, that goes within a few hours of pouring glass of water. But the worst is the fluoride. The reverse osmosis can filter that out.
Distilled water is like the main water for herbalism because of osmosis there.
Yeah. Reverse osmosis is probably your best water filter, but I don't drink distilled water. Yeah?
Copper water? Copper?
Copper.
Yeah.
Coconut water.
Coconut water?
No, copper.
Copper water.
Copper.
Like the-
I don't know what copper water is.
Like put it in a copper container to release the copper in the water.
Okay, that's something I don't know.
You talk about changing your diet and exercise, and you have that rapid weight loss up front and then kind of plateau. Even though there's clearly more weight to lose, what's the reason for that?
If the weight's not coming up as quickly as you like, it could be a hormone imbalance. It's very hard to lose weight when the hormones are out of balance. So we looked at that estrogen, which causes massive cell growth, so that could be an aspect. And the other, one of the easiest ways is to get the carbohydrates right down. And eat most of the food at breakfast and lunch. That's your moderation, the timing that can do it. Check that enough water. So you can do some adjustments and see the results happen. Yeah.
For someone with ADHD, I usually have a really busy mind when I'm trying to go to sleep, so how do I stop that so I'm not in bed for 2 hours?
Yeah, well, what you can do is, it's called the chat room. And everyone knows the chat room. And what you can do to get out of the chat room is count sheep jumping over a fence, read a very boring book with a soft light on. You're just going to get your mind out of that. And I'm very challenged with the chat room. So I usually go for my memory verses, or I do the 5 seconds in through the nose, hold for 3, 5 seconds out. Do that 10 times if you've got your mind on counting it, and that often you'll fall asleep with that. So there's a whole lot of little things you can do to get out of that chat room. Yes?
The man you mentioned who lost all that weight, does he talk about what he did for his skin elasticity after all that weight was lost?
Because he was well hydrated, because he was well mineralized, and because he was having great amounts of fat, including olive oil in his foods and having avocados every day, that really is what softened his skin. I I do acknowledge that some people have inherited drier skin than others, so if a person's skin does tend to dryness, even if they're eating adequate fat and they're drinking adequate water, it can be that they might need to put coconut oil or something on their skin. Yeah?
How can you prevent from waking up from like 2 to 4 in the morning, every morning?
You can train yourself out of it, and one of the most important things to do is never get annoyed at that. If you get annoyed with the fact that you can't sleep, you will never go back to sleep. The Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks. Thank you so much, I'm awake, Father in heaven, now I can talk to you. And so you can train yourself back into that.
Barbara, I have a web question for you. Catherine wants to know, what book would you recommend on MS?
What book would you recommend on MS? There's a book called Solving the MS Mystery. It's by Dr. Hal Huggins. And Dr. Hal Huggins is a dentist, and he shows the clear link between mercury and amalgam fillings and multiple sclerosis. So someone's it's a recipe for disaster for the nerve cells if they've got mercury fillings in their mouth. They're having a lot of fish with its mercury. They have the flu vaccine every year, which also has mercury. And they're not eating any fat in their diet, and they're on cholesterol-lowering medication, and they're dehydrated, and they're drinking too much coffee. That's a recipe for hurting the brain cells. Yeah?
Without taking like hormone tests, how do you know if your body's hormonal?
How do you know if your hormones? Well, there is a test, but it's more a saliva test, which is not common, but I don't think there's need to have tests. I think that if a woman's ever been on the pill, she must go on the hormone balancing cream because the pill throws it out. But often signs and symptoms, but I talked to one lady and she had no symptoms at all until she went through menopause. And then when she went through menopause, then she got the symptoms.
So you think just any woman could use Wildman?
Any woman could use it, yeah, because one of the effects of the progesterone is it's a happy hormone, and you can't have too much happiness. Yeah?
You talk about tumors, like shrinking tumors, does that also apply to lipomas?
Yeah, the lipomas, there's a few theories on lipomas. It appears that maybe it's one of the body's way of sealing up toxins that come into the body, environmental poisons, because we are exposed to so many today. And I've known people who've had the lipomas, which is like fatty lumps on the skin, have them cut out, then they grow back. And of course, surgery is never a pleasant experience. But you can try castor oil compresses. Now, they won't go away overnight, but little by little by little, quite possibly. Yeah?
Can the young also help to conceive?
The yam cream can help to conceive because one of the reasons why couples can't conceive is because the hormones are out of balance. There's a hormone cream in Australia called the Anaswal yam cream that because a certain person has talked about it, it's a worldwide shortage. Apparently they're moving to a bigger facility to try and accommodate the demand. But there's also an illustration to show how many people are in trouble in this situation. Well, there are a lot of babies in Australia called Anna. Because of couples that couldn't have children, balance the hormones, and they were so appreciative to the Anaswal yam cream, they called their babies Anna. So we have seen that too. We had a young couple attend our program, and I quickly saw that they both had major intolerance to gluten. They changed their lifestyle, changed their eating, and the lady went on the yam cream. And 1 year later, I got a photo of their baby. And they were told they couldn't have children. So changing the lifestyle is important. Getting the environmental poisons out of the life is important. Balancing the hormones with the yam cream is also important. So there's a few aspects that come into it. It's usually not one thing that pulls us down. It's a whole lot of little bits and pieces. And there's a whole lot of little bits and pieces that can build us up to once again have quality of life, as I'm sure you'll see.
How do you know if male teenagers need the supplements?
Yeah, I've had people say to me, thank you for bringing peace back into our home, because the teenage girl went on the yam cream, and the premenstrual tension eased. So, yeah, a lot of young people have found help with it. I'm going to say a closing prayer, and class is out. Father, thank you so much for what you've taught us today. Thank you again for this incredible body. And it's